Well, thank you all so much for being here. It's an honor to be reading today. And, Cathy, it's really nice to see you in person. I know we've communicated a little bit via email, but it's
Yeah.
great to be here. Thank you, Virginia Poetry Society of Virginia. I'm going to go ahead and share what I've got on my end and then read you just a few poems. So I wanted to start with this quote. This quote found me recently again, rereading Song of Myself. And I just wanted to start by saying that we're so much more than what is contained between our hat and boots. And so I see myself often as a vessel to try to capture what I can see in life, to live art as much as possible, and then record what I see. So this quote for me has been really inspirational recently. In thinking about where art meets the line, I think this image that maybe some of you have also seen is where art kind of met the line for me. This is a painting by Peter Bruegel, a landscape with the fall of Icarus. And some of you have probably also read the poem Musée des Beaux-Arts by W.H. Auden that kind of references this painting. And from then on, I really enjoyed just going to the art museum, sitting at the cafe, listening to what I could hear and looking at what I could see and just recording it all. This is a book that I made a long time ago. This was in 2017. I was in Lin Su's final workshop during my MFA in poetry at UMass Amherst, and it was a workshop on the long poem. And so I took this very literally, and the poem itself, as you can see, is quite long, written on a scroll of sorts, kind of accordions out. And if you're curious, it's about 47 feet long. So there it is in Dara's house with my friend Zach and John. I'm kind of all spooled out. But I folded it up and made this cover with some birch bark. So nature is something else that you'll often see kind of coming into my work. Being out in nature, making art in nature, and being as connected as I can to it. So what I wanted to do is read first a poem, a section of this poem from the manuscript called Pray If You Pray. And I went to AWP in 2017 in Washington, D.C. And while I was waiting to meet up with a friend of mine, Peter, I was sitting at the on the steps of the National Portrait Gallery and was writing in my notebook. And there's a statue there called Man with a Briefcase by Jonathan Borofsky. And so I wrote this poem. This is part 2 of the 3-part long poem, Pray If You Pray. 2. After Man with a Briefcase by Jonathan Borofsky. A tall man stands higher than a crane, though is shorter than the buildings. A willow tree engulfing trash and leaves. A man in a sleeping bag between storefront windows. Giant replicas of a red cowboy riding a blue horse, rearing up, gun raised to the air, or pointed up at God, maybe. An off-distant score, a drum beat, a man with a trash can, a 5-gallon bucket for a snare, a pail of salt for the freezing over, and the unfrozen kept in the cold. Pink lights, rooftops, a gray sky, and the museum closing at 7. Renovations unapologetic, posted on wrought iron fences, the lawn unkept. We are sorry for the inconvenience in any way, what's left for waiting to be fixed. The bright white light of the television screen illuminating the dark sky fading. Hope, at least, he hopes, gathering rust, not sure which way he is facing or what he carries with him, this tall, flat man with a suitcase, standing in attempts to look. So that's section 2 of the poem. There's one before it and one after it. But I just wanted to share that part. In thinking also about art that I make and where art meets the line of poetry, I've explored many different things with typing on different natural materials that I can find. And I think this is a magnolia leaf that I ran through my typewriter and then put a light behind it. And so I'd like exploring things like that as well. These are a couple other things that I've made. The painting, picture, screen print on the left with the house was a collaborative piece that I did with my twin brother. So the back of it, the blue and light blue triangles were an attempt to make a calendar by screen printing this form. And we got some like test prints, and then my brother went and did a design over it, and we call it Mark Twain. So there are numbers here, and it looks as if like the water is rising to 7 feet, Mark Twain. And then the other thing that you see is a koozie design that I did for a koozie art show at the market in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And in thinking about my writing and what I like to write most about, I also really like to make up things that that come in from my imagination and exploring those ideas wholeheartedly. So the world is obviously not flat, but I wanted to kind of give myself a parameter of what would it look like if the world was flat, and what exists on that. So that's a little playful design that I've made. I wanted to share this with you as well. A couple of years ago, I bought a school bus and turned it into an RV and drove all over the country and got to see so many amazing, beautiful places. And I felt for like the first time was actually living my art in a way that I'd never done before. I was able to see the sun rise and the sun set every day through these windows. And I wanted to talk a little bit. I won't read anything from it today, but I did start writing a novel in Novel November. I never tried it before, but writing 1,700 words a day is a task in itself. So to try to get to 50,000 by the end. But it kind of chronicles some of my experience with my travels on the bus. And in a way, it's ekphrastic because it's a catalog of all the art and writing and music that I'm inspired by. Thinking about writing like David Foster Wallace and the use of footnotes, and Henry James and Virginia Woolf, these kind of really elongated interior sentences that we get. So I'm working on it right now. It's essentially about a glass maker and someone that makes mosaics. So you have one character who's making these beautiful things out of glass, and then the other character is foraging for broken glass by the sea, and foraging for fulgurite when lightning strikes and makes glass sculptures from sand. So that's kind of the premise of it. It talks a lot about time and nature and the connectedness to it all, the universe and time. Really, these two characters in different places in the world, but only by an hour. So related to being on the road and traveling, this is one of my 35 millimeter photographs that I took a long time ago. This is a picture of the Shenandoah Valley where I grew up. And I wanted to end today just by reading a couple poems that kind of channel that energy, that harness a lot of that imagery, which you find often in my work. So this is called 21st Century Family Orphanage. Nothing is found on blue note cards. A bouquet of flowers, old trucks by the river, a group of swallows, black like the ocean, blue water, marigolds, horses in trampled grass, the silent train at midnight, a porch with chairs, moonlight in springtime, wet leaves, a bouquet of hydrangea, June bugs fallen in the sweet tobacco, scented geranium blooms late summer, earth I can't see on the path to a southern orphan age, a goat in a field, snow dancing on the frozen lake, a hedge of small roses like arms from the tall water, big, blue, old, blue, enormous mountains, a light on, the door wide open, a man in the foreground. And so this one kind of catalogs some of that same imagery, just kind of being nomadic and out there on the road, and just kind of really trusting in everything that's there. and, just taking it a moment by moment. So this poem was published in Work magazine, or Work Cultural Review. I don't think that it is printed anymore, but it was printed on newspaper, I think out of Fredericksburg. A really cool thing. They do still have their website up, but this one was published a while ago on Work magazine, and it's called The Story of the Rose. The Story of the Rose. You'll get on the road and forget all about me, she says. Start driving through the landscape, looking back, preoccupied with the heat and the windows down and the cool air. You'll forget all about the whites you accidentally put in with a load of colors. You'll drive through the farmland, by the interstate, headed north, past the long river, toward the blue pines. You'll forget all about her. She'll forget all about the rose. You'll come back someday on your way through those Pennsylvania mountains. You'll say, halfway there, coming to see you. I'll be back just a few more hours. Remember me like this forever. Thank you all so much. This was lovely to share a little bit of myself with you, and hope to excited to see what everyone else has, and excited to connect afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Logan. Also incredible variety and some real adventures in your life already.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm really happy that you shared those.